Good day, good morning, good evening. All depends on where you are. But glad you're here with me, Dylan Bruton, host of Pelicans Daily, presented by Fan Arch. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. You know the deal, you know the drill. I really appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Again, I love the support, love the constant dialogue and discourse. You know what I'm saying? This is what it's all about. This is what we got to do. But let's get right to it. So, we Mr. Jones's name just keeps popping up in all these trade rumors, and I get it, right? The young man is very talented, versatile. You know what I'm saying? He's an amazing defender, amazing athlete, amazing guy in the locker room. Can space the floor. You know what I'm saying? Can play lights out. Can play lights out defense on the perimeter. Can guard at the paint. And he's only 26 years old. And he's got 2 years left on his contract, 13.9 mil, and then 14.9 mil. So there's a lot attractive about him as far as, as a player and as someone to potentially add to your roster. He's got an All NBA first team defense on his name. So I get it. I understand. But dang, get your own Herb, all right? Get your own. You know what I'm saying? Get your own Jones. Stop trying to keep up with them. Uh, but another trade rumor came about, and this was in an article on a Lakers site, and it talked about, hey, gotta have the notes on deck, man. And this was with Fadeaway, and they talked about on Fadeaway World, and they talked about a potential trade that Rob Pelinka might pull the trigger on and do. Now, in this trade, as I mentioned, Herb is part of it. And the Lakers would be giving up more. So they would be giving up a second round pick in 2025, so this year. Gabe Vincent and Dalton Connect. Now, I'll talk about Gabe Vincent first. Gabe Vincent, has carved out a solid career for himself as a role player. Kind of like, funny enough, but kind of like Willie Green back in the day. Obviously, Willie Green was in the '03 draft, but just as like a role player, tough nosed player, can space the floor, play defense. You know what I'm saying? Not the biggest guard, but plays with a lot of heart. This past year, off the bench, he averaged 6 a game, a rebound and assist. Shot, nearly 36% from the 3-point line for the Lakers. Okay, and hats off, respect to him for grinding his way into the league, grinding his way and making sure that, what I'm saying, he can get to the next level. But uh, uh, nah. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But Dalton Connect. Now, Dalton Connect is a little bit more of an intriguing prospect. You know what I'm saying? The young man is 23 going on 24 years old. Had a very good rookie year last year for the Lakers. You know what I'm saying? All the talk was around Bronny, but the best rookie last year for the Lakers was Dalton. They just no if, and, or but about it. Averaged 9 points, three rebounds, nearly assists a game. And his efficiency shooting wise was something special. Shot 46% from the field, nearly 38% from the 3-point line, and 86% from the free throw line. He had some huge games, like he scored 37 points against the Jazz and made 9 threes, which is the most in NBA history for a rookie. And the potential with him is still high. Coming into the league, he was compared to guys like Mike Miller and Rex Chapman. Bleacher Report compared him to Wally Zerbiak. I've seen a couple other sites compare him with guys like Corey Kisser, Buddy Hield. Hey, shout out to a former Pelican, still playing, still doing his thing, and Bojan Bogdanovic. Now, personally, this if we were dumb enough to make this trade, because I'm gonna just speak honestly and speak truly, um, Lakers winning this trade, 100%. Now, I know we would get more back, but it's about quality and not quantity. That just goes for life, you know what I'm saying? But definitely in basketball. And, Dalton Connect, I think there's still a lot of promise that he has as a player. I think that he has a lot of potential moving forth. And I know he also was rubbed a bit wrong to be included in the trade for Mark Williams of the Hornets that didn't go through just because of Mark Williams failing the physical. And then the rest of the year, he didn't really play as much minutes. In the playoffs, he hardly got in at all, averaged, about 2.5 points a game, playing very spot minutes. And they could have used the shooter out there. Hey, JJ Redick, I respect your basketball mind, and you one of my favorite Blue Devils of all time, but I didn't really get that decision to sit him when y'all needed spacing. Y'all needed shooters. But this is a win for the Lakers because defensively they would get better, right? They were middle of the pack. They finished 15th in total defense. But, they did well in certain categories. They were 10th in scoring defense, 10th in field goal defense, and 10th in three-point defense. And knowing the type of active defender that Herb is, the way that he gets out on the perimeter, the way he closes out on the ball, that's a win for them. And then, they were 16th in defending the paint. Now, obviously, they have to figure out their big man situation because when they didn't get Mark Williams, it left them to have, another former Pelican still there, Jackson Hayes, who hasn't, quite put it all together and figured it out and become, the type of player he was projected to be when he was coming out of Texas. But it works for them getting a player like Herb because Herb can play as an undersized four, can play at the basket, strong defensive rebounder as well. So that he's going to contest a lot of shots at the paint. But yeah, I wasn't not really feeling this one. You know what I'm saying? It never hurts to add more shooters. And I think Dalton would do well as a shooter and a floor spacer. You put him, you put him with, on the perimeter, allowing Zion, allowing CJ, allowing DeJounte when he comes back, Trey Murphy. He's not a guy that needs a lot of touches, so you allow him to be on the corner, space out for the three. But make no mistake, Dalton can put the ball down on the court if need be. But the main reason why I'm not for getting Dalton, especially, is that we can essentially draft a better version of him in Khan Knoepel. And I'm not letting my Duke bias show. I'm just saying I think that Khan has more, I don't want to say star, but he has more all-star potential, right? There's a higher ceiling that he has. And I saw a couple of comparisons 2 videos ago on my Khan video, the video where I talked about Khan a bit more extensively, and someone brought up Manu Ginobili. And I think that's not a bad comparison for him. He does have he doesn't have the crafty handle that Ginobili has, but there is that ability to play slick and to kind of find his spots in little small areas that are a little bit awkward for most players. And he's a very underrated athlete in that regard. And then I was reading something, and he said, Klay Thompson was a guy that he looked up to, and that's someone who he models his game after. And Klay Thompson is arguably, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, 3-and-D player. When you really think about the definition and you think about what, the impact that he's had in his career and he had for the Warriors, for them to win 4 titles, from 2015 to 2022. So, I'm not saying that Khan is going to be Klay, but if we get a Klay Thompson at pick 7, that's a pick well spent. There's no if, and, or but about it. So, again, I'm not with giving up Zion. Y'all hear me say that all the time. And I'm for damn sure not with giving up Herb, especially for that. LA, you're going to have to offer us a package better than that. We're not Dallas, okay? We're not Dallas. We ain't taking the pennies. We ain't taking, the scraps. And I'm not calling, them guys scraps. I'm just speaking very metaphorically. But we're gonna need more. If you're gonna, if you want us to part ways with one of our most beloved players, one of our most valuable players, our best glue guy, and a player who still has a high ceiling as a again, a super glue guy, gonna need more than that. Gonna need way more than that. So y'all know where I stand on it, but y'all let me know what y'all think. I found that to be very interesting, but it was almost like, some of these trades, a little bit of they're an insult to our intelligence. How dumb and stupid do you think we are? We're turning a new leaf. Okay, this is not the same Pelicans as before. David Griffin is not there anymore. You can't swindle us. Okay, so yeah, let's move on to the next. So, want to talk about Mr. Trey Johnson now. Sorry about that. Now Trey Johnson. I talked about him in my very first video, but just very briefly, as a player considered and mocked to us at pick number 7. Now, Trey Johnson enjoyed one of the best freshman years in the nation this past year. Nearly averaged 20 a game, averaged 19.9 points per game. Might as well give him that little extra bump, which was first in the SEC, and he was the SEC Freshman of the Year. He had some huge games. His debut, he broke Kevin Durant's freshman scoring record in his first game, scoring 29, grabbing 5 boards and 4 assists and 2 steals and a block versus Ohio State. And then the most points that he put up was 39 against Arkansas. Granted, they lost that game, but it was not because of Trey. Trey did everything possible, and he also that's another record of Kevin Durant's that he broke. And I'm not saying Trey and KD, no, but Kevin Durant had one of the best freshman years I've ever seen back in 06, 07, and he parlayed that into being the second overall pick in the 07 draft. One of the best players ever, one of the greatest scorers that we're ever going to see. So for a young guy all these years later to come and break his records, that you take note to stuff like that. You pay attention because you're like, okay, wait a minute. Like, Texas has also enjoyed and had some great players come through. So for you to come through and you killing it, you doing it. And they're in the SEC now. They're no longer in the Big 12. The SEC was very competitive this past year. Had the number 1 team in the entire nation in Auburn. You know what I'm saying? You had teams like Bama. Now, people are looking at these teams as normally football powerhouses, but they're turning into basketball powerhouses over there. So, hey, for Trey Johnson to have the year that he did, it speaks volumes. And he, unfortunately, they were bounced out in the first 4, but he put up 23 against Xavier. Shot 6 for 14 from the field, made 4 threes, was very active in getting to the basket. Had 11 free throw attempts, only made 7, but he shot well from the free throw line this year. Shot 87% from the free throw line, nearly shot 40% from 3, which was second in the SEC in total. Now, his efficiency, that is definitely the thing that we got to work on. Now, overall, I would say of this entire draft, in this entire of looking at all the prospects, I would definitely say Trey Johnson is the best scorer. Just bucket getter, roll out a ball. I love using that comparison. If you ever play ball, you know what I'm talking about. But roll out the ball, 3 dribbles or less. He's able to make shots in every part of the court. 3-level scorer. So mid-range 3 at the basket. He's not the most explosive athlete ever, but he's no slouch either. He can beat his man off the dribble. Definitely has to work on continue developing his post game, because I think that's going to be a weapon for him. He showed a lot of flashes. He loves the fadeaway, and he loves the pull-up 3. And I know some people are going to say, well, why would we get Trey Johnson when we already have Trey Murphy? We already got CJ McCollum. We got DeJounte. We've got guys who are bucket getters. But, hey, guess what? It never hurts to add more, right? One thing about a team like the Thunder or a team like the Pacers, you look at the depth of their roster. You look at how many guys they got on their team that can go out and get a bucket, guys that would be starters on teams elsewhere, but they just happen to be on this particular team that's built very well, right? It always helps to have more guys on your team that can score. And someone like Trey Johnson, I'm going to list some of the players he was compared to, because I named, for the guys I named for Dalton, you can imagine the star potential with Trey is a lot higher. But there's names like Cam Thomas, Latrell Sprewell, Rip Hamilton, Allen Houston, which I think the Allen Houston one fits him very well. But I see the Rip Hamilton, I see like a combo of like Latrell, as far as like he is a very aggressive player. He can take it to the basket. He's not as athletic as Latrell, but still very physical and aggressive like Latrell in his years in Golden State, New York, Minnesota. He's got the off-ball and cutting ability like Rip Hamilton when he was on the Wizards, when he was on the Pistons. And obviously, Joe Dumars knows directly with a player like him, a player like Rip Hamilton. Allen Houston as well he knows about, right? Allen Houston was first on the Pistons before he went over to the Knicks. He was there for Joe Dumars' last few years. And I think the Allen Houston comparison works very well. It's just as a player with a beautiful jump shot, able to pick his spots well. And then he's been, look at the lower end of comparisons, guys like Nick Young, Alec Burks, who's carved out a respectable career as a off the bench scorer. Swaggy P, shout out to him. I had the haircut when I was in high school. He was a very fun player to watch. Mildly inconsistent, and that is kind of like where you don't want Trey Johnson's career to get over to. But Nick Young had his moments where he looked like he could put it all together to be an all-star type of shooting guard. And a lot of players, even like Gilbert Arenas, has said countless of times on Gil's Arena that Nick Young, just pure bucket getting ability, was like Kobe light. So I'm not saying that means Trey is going to become Kobe, like everything within reason. But I'm just saying, when you look at where a player can go, their ceiling and their floor, you got to look at the best of both worlds. And then another player, I'll bring up Tyler Herro. I think I brought him up in the first video. But yeah, Tyler Herro, first-time All-Star, Kentucky. Shout out to Coach Cal. First-time All-Star this year. He's really grown and transformed his game. Questions are still to be had if he's a number one guy that you build around. But, you can't argue with the results, right? He's played incredibly well since he came into the league in 2019. He played incredibly well in the bubble. Was a very big piece to them getting to the finals in 2023. And All-Star this year and three-point champion. So, what I'm saying? And I think Trey Johnson definitely will probably end up in the three-point shootout at the very least, whatever team he plays at. But definitely, because that young man can shoot. He's got best jumper of the draft, best pure scorer. And then a name that I saw that he got compared to, I found very interesting because I was a huge fan of his, like huge. And in around 2008, I thought he was going to be, I thought he was going to be the next Kobe. Hey, look, hindsight is 2020, but OJ Mayo. Now, OJ Mayo, pure bucket getting wise, I got a chance to see OJ during the lockout in 2012, and pure bucket. Just anywhere he wanted to go, any shot, just so smooth. It's unfortunate what happened with his career. I really think in another universe he becomes a superstar, household face of the league, but yeah, so I mean, all these guys have had, either had great careers or are still enjoying great careers. So I think, again, Trey Johnson's a very safe pick. And if we get creative with our lineups, you put the two Treys in the game. You put Trey Murphy at the three because he's got the defensive ability and the height, and you put Trey Johnson at the two. Watch out. That might be something. Again, I said that Jeremiah Fears is who I think and who I would want us to get, but not opposed, obviously, to Khan or Kaman, the two Duke brothers. But I think Trey also could do some things. I think he could be very special. Now, this is a little bit more lofty, not as lofty as Ace Bailey, but VJ Edgecombe. Now, VJ Edgecombe, talking about the 2008 draft, right? There was a guy by the name of Russell Westbrook. Now, when I watch VJ Edgecombe, I see Russ like fully, but a more refined Russ, a Russ with a jump shot, like consistently, and not just mid-range wise, because Russ developed his mid-range game, his mid-range pull-up, but a Russ that can consistently hit shots from three. Now, VJ Edgecombe was also another freshman who came in and played incredibly well, averaged 15 a game, nearly 6 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, nearly a block a game, and shot nearly 44% from the field, 78% from the free throw line, and 34% from the three. 6'4", 6'5", .2, most explosive athlete in the entire draft. Like, his vert and his standing jump, it showed at the combine. It showed that he's a once in a draft type of athlete. I haven't seen it, but when I see the aggression and see his ability of getting up, it reminds me so much of Russ, right? So much. I'll just start with the comparisons that that I saw for him. But I think these are all pretty accurate. But like obviously, Russ is the ultimate ceiling. Ultimate ceiling. But he's been the other ultimate ceiling, I saw someone say shades of Dwayne Wade, which again, if at pick 7, it's kind of remains to be seen. His stock is going to be very interesting to monitor because I think realistically he's going to go anywhere between 4 and us, and it just kind of depends on what teams what they do, because obviously draft's probably going to go Cooper, Dylan, and Ace Bailey, but who knows what happens with Ace? You know what I'm saying? Who knows what happens with Ace? Who knows? Who knows even what happens with Dylan Harper? Maybe that's for another video. But likely, like that's the top 3. So who's going to be that next draft pick after? And I very well see it being VJ, but or Trey or Jeremiah, like just one of them. But if VJ slips, I definitely think we should consider it. But yeah, D Wade was an ultimate ceiling. So if we get at pick 7 a D Wade Russell Westbrook hybrid, oh my gosh. Oh, that's a special player right there. That's like the most physically explosive guard in the league. You know what I'm saying? Pure athleticism, just pure, aggression at taking it to the basket. But he shoots better from 3 than either of them did in college, and likely will continue to in the pros. Some other guys he's been compared to, Victor Oladipo, who prior to injury, he was carving out a really nice career for himself out of Indiana. He had some good years in Orlando and OKC, and even in Miami prior to his injuries. But when he hit his like zenith as like most improved player, dunk contest, all-star, that was in Indy. He was, people forget, but 2018, the Pacers they were playing the Cavs very competitively, and he was going at it with LeBron. Hey, I take that into account. Some other guys he got compared to, Eddie Jones. Eddie Jones was the 2 guard in LA before Kobe came into the picture. Very talented all-star himself, one of the best two-way players in his day. He's been compared to, modern guys like Benedict Mathurin, who, again, that's a guy who, if you put Benedict Mathurin on a lot of teams, he would be, a guy that you build around. But he's on a team that's deep, and he's still doing his thing. Very athletic player, plays incredibly confident, and a great shooter. And then a guy like Christian Braun, who has stepped up his play even more. Did a great job this past year in Denver, really elevating his game. And I think, likely they're gonna build around him in the future. I think he, especially, if with Jamal Murray's injury history, and maybe if he gets frustrated, I don't know. I think Jamal Murray is gonna end up staying in Denver for a long time. But if something happens, right, you got someone waiting in the wings like Christian Braun. And then Jalen Green. Now Jalen Green, talked about before. I think Jalen Green has a lot of potential that hasn't been fully realized yet, but I think it was more so just going off of where Jalen Green is at now. And again, the athleticism, the shot creation ability. Now, I will say with VJ, because he also proved himself in the international stage, with the Bohemian Olympic team this year. They averaged 16, 5, 4, and 2 steals. And this was a team that had DeAndre Ayton, who I talked about a couple videos ago as a potential trade piece. Eric Gordon, who, hey, by all intents and purposes, Eric Gordon held it down for several years. Held it down for us, especially when AD came into the fold. And he was part of that Chris Paul trade. Eric Gordon, balled out for us, enjoyed a very respectable career as a floor spacer and as a shot creator. And Buddy Hield as well. And so the fact that he put up the numbers that he did, especially at the international level, right, it just showed his ability, it showed his drive. And he was the best player for Baylor against Duke. He put up 16, 6 boards, an assist, a steal. Granted, they just didn't have the firepower. Him and Norchad Omier, they were a really dope duo, but it wasn't enough to withstand all the firepower that Duke had. But yeah, I think that with VJ, in watching his game, as far as like things he has to work on, I think he just needs to be even more aggressive, right? Let him loose. Let him do his thing. He's a very unselfish player. He's a player who, has that hard hat mentality despite, just having the physical gifts that he has. But I think that there is a lot of room for him to grow. There's a lot of improvement. But I think his ultimate ceiling is Russell Westbrook, right? And Russell Westbrook coming out of college was not expected to be the Russ that he is now. You know what I'm saying? He was a great player at UCLA, but he wasn't, he didn't have the same fanfare as guys like Darren Collison, Aaron Aflalo, Kevin Love. Kevin Love was like the super freshman of that UCLA team. Even the guys who didn't get to as far, Josh Shipp, you know what I'm saying, or Luke Richard Mbah-a-Moute, you know what I'm saying, who was a great defensive player. Like Russell Westbrook was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, and he was incredibly hyper athletic. But there was concerns on, can he play point? Is he a guy that can be a lead guard, and can he create a shot? Because he's got this athleticism, he's got this aggression, but can he create? And those same kind of questions are being asked of VJ, but I do feel like VJ at this stage of his, young basketball career has shown shot creation ability, shown lead guard ability, and he's shown expansion with his game. He's got a nice mid-range game as well. I mean, I've seen, I was watching some of his film, and he's hitting fadeaways pretty easily. It didn't look uncomfortable for him. Obviously, I will say one thing too, and I think someone like, if we keep CJ would be a great mentor for him, because CJ has, beautiful shot mechanics. One thing I did notice with VJ is his set shot versus his shot when he's off the dribble. It does, his mechanics do get impacted, but that's a pretty common thing for young players, is they're getting more comfortable and getting more acclimated. So I think overall, it's not impossible that VJ slips that long. It really all depends. Draft is less than a month away. It kind of depends on what the teams after the first three, what they end up doing, right? But who knows? But I feel like if VJ is available at pick 7, we'd be stupid not to take him. And I know he's been covered before, but I didn't really got a chance to talk about him, so I had to talk about him. But now, all roads lead to Zion. That's going to be my thing, just so y'all know. All roads lead to Zion. Y'all been talking about it for videos on videos on videos on videos on videos. And I decided, you know what? Let's really dive into it. But let's talk about Point Zion. Now, should we unleash Point Zion fully? Now, the first introduction to that was in the 2020-2021 season when Stan Van Gundy was the coach. And this was right after Lonzo got hurt. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I want to pour out one for Lonzo. I really thought Lonzo was gonna be the point guard for us. I thought the little big three of Zoe, Bi, and Zion. I was hyped. That was my 2K team for several years. Like that, just them three. I would just go off with them three. But Zion stepped in very well. And every year, I found this a very interesting fact that every year that he's been in the league, his assists has gone up. He averaged 2 assists a game, which was similar to what he averaged at Duke. But the eye test showed he could, he can handle the ball. He can make decisive decisions and make some very nice passes. But then he averaged, nearly 4 assists a game when he had to become, Point Zion. Obviously, we know 21-22 season dealt with a lot of injury. He didn't play. But then in the 2022-2023 season, when he came back, he averaged nearly 5 assists a game. And then 23-24, when we made our playoff run, he averaged exactly 5 assists a game. And then last season, obviously in limited time, but still, he averaged 5.3 assists a game. So that shows progression if every year you're increasing, right? And given the instability, given the health issues, for him to be putting up those type of numbers and getting better and getting more comfortable, because I was watching JJ Redick in a podcast he did a year ago, and he said it reminds him a lot when he watches Zion, like especially like off a defensive rebound and hit the ground running, hit the break. It reminds him of like a Giannis and LeBron. Now we all know Zion was beset with the ultimate comparisons and expectations that are very hard to reach to. You know what I'm saying? as a player, you get compared to a Jordan, a Kobe, a LeBron. The expectation just goes through the roof, and it's a lot to live up to. But I saw where JJ was going with that comparison, just of how deadly he is with the ball in his hands, able to make decisions, and then being a physical mismatch, being a nightmare for defenses to try to stop at the paint. And it also dawned on me too that with Zion's game, he's not really an off-ball player, and he's not a catch and shoot guy. You know what I'm saying? That first game that he had in his first game against the Spurs, he made like 4 or 5 threes. We haven't seen that Zion since. I would love to see, him add that to his game. I think that will add years to his career, and I think that will also just take his game to another level. But we have to go with where he's at now, and obviously he's probably he's working and grinding right now. Season is still months away. We haven't even hit the draft yet. But point Zion, I'm very intrigued on the idea now. Also considering the fact that, given our point guard situation, right? That's probably, we got our 2 most banged up players in DeJounte, obviously with his Achilles injury. And then with, what's his name? CJ McCollum. I can't forget about CJ. But CJ, right? CJ, the foot injury. Now, CJ is likely coming back again prior to training camp. And, hopefully he's able to come in and play well right away, but you just don't know, right? He's 33. He's not no spring chicken anymore. And then with DeJounte, he'll be coming off an Achilles injury, and they said his comeback is going to be either like around November or February. So it's quite some time. It's quite some time away. And DeJounte's a bit younger. DeJounte's 27, 28. So there's still time for him to come back and play at a high level. I have utmost faith in DeJounte, but Achilles injuries ain't no joke. So we have to be prepared for the worst. Hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. That's just a parable in life. But Zion, what I'm saying, he achieved his career high in assists last year. He had 12 assists against this past year in March against the Clippers, and against the Suns, he put up one of the best triple doubles I've seen of his career. It might be the only triple double, but he had 11 assists. In February, he had 27, 10, 11, and he looked very comfortable with the ball in his hands, like fully. And then back in November, in the earlier part of the year, he put up 34, 6, and 10 assists versus the Pacers. So he's playing very comfortably and well when he has the ball in his hands as a point. And I think Willie Green is trying to figure out kind of like what the offensive system is, because we kind of go from either being a team that is mimicking the Warriors in the Curry Clay years to being just go out and get a bucket, run ISO. So I think there's things that we're figuring out as far as our offensive system, and that puts the pressure on Willie to figure out, right? And I liked how just daring and brave that Coach Van Gundy was to say, hey, Zion, go out and play point. And I can't even forget, can't forget about my guy GTA, Jose Alvarado. Can't forget about him too, but he's an undersized point. So I feel like the potential with defensive mismatches, because let's say everyone's back healthy. You got to line up with Zion at point, DeJounte at the 2, Trey Murphy at the 3. But then that does ask questions of, okay, so who do we put at the 4? Or do we put Herb at the 4 and then 5 E Missy. That's a very talented starting 5, and they each provide different things, and obviously with Zion at the point, that creates incredible amount of mismatches. So I think there's a variety of possibilities, and then also with who we get at pick 7, that's going to have a big influence on what we do. If we're able to get anybody in free agency, if we're able to make any trades, but I think point Zion, I'm not sure if we should start out the year point Zion. Because likely, CJ's going to be back, so he's going to play a lot of point, veteran mainstay, and then Alvarado will play point off the bench. But if we get to a point, God forbid, where either things ain't looking good or it's like, you know what, let's inject something new. Let's throw the defense off. Let's make them have to work harder in scheming and coaching coaching their team as far as how to face different matchups. Why not? Why not? At this point, it wouldn't hurt. And I also feel like with Zion, with him as a player, he thrives more. Just watching his body language, his energy, he thrives more when he is actively in the game, actively, pushing, actively, on it. So I think the point Zion era, I think we should give it a lot more thought. I think we should consider it, and I think if we really go all in, hey, who knows what ends up happening? I mentioned names of LeBron and Giannis, right? Giannis, MVP, one of the best two-way players at his size position, combined with handling, 2021 NBA Finals champion and Finals MVP. LeBron, I mean, we know about LeBron's accomplishments. LeBron's resume is one of the greatest in the entire not just league but just sports in general. You know what I'm saying? And if Zion is to reach the player that many still believe, well, I don't know if many still. Actually, I don't know. I believe in Zion. But I'm a Duke guy, so I'm a little bit. There's a little bit of bias there, but I still feel like with Zion's, ability and talent, I still think that his ceiling is as high as he is when he's jumping, right? You know, so I feel like overall, why not? Why not give it a go though? Why not? Looking at the way that the team is structured and looking at what we could have did when fully healthy, it begs to ask and wonder what happens. What happens with if we let him unleashed and let him go? If we end up getting Khan and you got Zion with the ball, you know what I'm saying, he's gonna kick it to Khan on the perimeter. If we draft Murray Boyles, both of them guys are undersized, but Boyles can shoot the mid range, right? And he can handle the ball a little bit himself. So that creates potential mismatches. If we get Kaman, imagine a pick and roll with Zion and Kaman, Duke to Duke on the alley oop, rhyming accidentally. And then, or if we get a VJ Edgecombe, right? You can put a VJ at the 2. You could put a Trey Johnson at the 2. And with VJ, he can go up and catch a lob. With Trey, he can, space out on the court. You know what I'm saying? He can, if Zion is if all the defense is going to collapse onto Zion, you can kick it out of Trey. And he can either, hit a 3 or he can put the ball on the floor. So I just think there's a lot of possibilities that could be had. And y'all have been point Zion. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, why not? Why not? Why not? And I believe there was a stat, and I try to, because any stats that I find, I try to make sure I can find like an exact place to reference, because you gotta have sources, right? You gotta state your sources. You know what I'm saying? State your sources, like what Jaylen Brown told to Stephen A. Smith. But when you're presenting certain facts, you're presenting certain things. Obviously, you're gonna you have your own explanation with it, but there should be a source that you can point to so people can say, oh, okay, this information adds up, as opposed to he just made that one up. He just conjured that up into thin air. No, I believe in facts. I believe in objectivity, and I believe in giving y'all the most unbiased perspectives as possible. So I believe though the stat was Zion, like as a on-ball player, and especially like from the point guard spot, and they tracked this stat from 2023-24, so our playoff year. He generated 1.4 offensive points every possession. Now, granted, we had Jonas Valanciunas, who was a very efficient player down low in the paint, post game wise and mid range, but I still feel like we could achieve that same type of success efficiency wise and be able to, again, create more defensive mismatches. So, you know, it's something to consider, something to really, I feel like with Zion, this is a big year for him. His name has never been floated around in more trade talk. Obviously, there was that in 2023, and given some of his shenanigans, shenanigans of the night. That's all I'm gonna say with that. And then obviously with his injury concerns, but then also too, given his injury concerns, right, him having to bang and go against fours and whatnot. Well, let him mollywop these point guards, especially the smaller they are. Why not let him use his size to physically impose and cause the most amount of pressure? Because I feel like that's just Zion is a really nice guy. Everyone that I know that's ever met him is like he's like a super nice guy. But this is the year where for Zion, I need him to be the biggest dog, mean jerk, like within reason out there. But I need him to unleash, to let out the beast. You know what I'm saying? I need him, full BTA foot on next season, right? You know what I'm saying? I need you to come out there that the way that the Pacers are playing against the Knicks right now. We'll see what happens. You know what I'm saying? I doubt the NBA is going to let the Knicks get swept, but you know what I'm saying? But the Pacers right now, they are putting feet to the fire, feet to the coals. I need Zion to come out this next upcoming year with that same mentality. And I feel like giving him the keys more so, to the Ferrari proverbially, at a position like point, I feel like that could help him. And I feel like that could inspire him more. I feel like that can just bring out that dog and that beast that's in him. Because I know it's in him. He showed it showed it in high school. He showed it in college. There was so many different times that he showed that, and he's shown in the pros. Like it's been moments, right? It's been a lot of moments where he has shown. I look no further to the game he had, talking about Bron. That playing game against Bron, he put up 40. He outplayed Bron. He was giving Bron problems. Now, granted, yes, LeBron, was pushed. Was 39 at that point. But we all know LeBron's still playing at a high level, still arguably a top 5 to 10 player in the league. So for Zion, if he's going to reach that caliber, those and make those comparisons come true, you need to invest in him. And obviously, as I've spoken about quite often, President Dumars believes in Zion. He made it very clear by sending him to the draft, and he's very openly said, no, we want to build around him. So I feel like we have to now equip Zion with the tools and opportunities. What he does with that is all on him. That's all how he responds and goes out there. But I believe in him. And hey, Point Zion got a nice ring to it. And I think that while we're figuring out things, especially with DeJounte's injury, CJ, the questions about him, he might get moved. Why not? Why not give it a go? But this draft is going to be very interesting. Again, like I said, there's going to be a lot of eyes on us and what we do because, we have some bargaining chips. We have a little bit more leverage and, also looking at the rest of the landscape in the NBA. People are going to be looking at us. More eyes are going to be on us. So, hey, why not unleash the guy that you're coming to go, you're paying your hard-earned money to go to Smoothie King Center for, right? That's who's putting butts in seats. So why not? Why not give him more of a spotlight? Why not give him more of an opportunity to showcase his versatile all-around skill set and showcase his physical dominance combined with his fundamental skill? And if he ends up turning that into becoming an MVP caliber player, then everyone's going to be saying, you know what? We figured it out. We did something there. But hey, that's just food for thought. That's just, thoughts of my mind. And again, I appreciate y'all for, again, the dialogue, the discourse, the support, the continued investment to this. Keep rocking with me. Keep staying on this ride and this journey. Promise y'all. You know what I'm saying? We're here to take it to the promised land. We're here to get championship levels, okay? We're here to get to the top. But it's been an absolute pleasure, as always, chopping it up with y'all. Stay tuned for the next video. Pelicans Daily presented by Fan Arch. Make sure y'all follow Fan Arch on all social media platforms. Make sure that you stay tapped into what they're doing. They're doing so many amazing things, working with so many great people, giving you consistent sports coverage around the clock. You can follow me on my Instagram that I'm linked with this at Dylan DYLAN _Bruton BRUTON 10. And make sure to like, share, subscribe. I'm gonna keep saying it. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna keep saying it. Like, share, and subscribe. And stay tuned for more coverage. It's been amazing. Y'all stay safe this weekend. Y'all have a good one. Look for the next video. Ciao.